Hello, everybody. Welcome to a delightful episode of Homo Sapiens. How are we all doing? Things are good over here. Spring is a springing. I'm recording this the moment before Easter, so very excited about that. And very excited about my co-host today, who I shall introduce in one English minute. I just wanted to, before that, just remind us all of a few things coming up. The Homo Sapiens Dog Walk is happening on the Saturday, the 30th of May. We have got lots of you coming down. If you go to the Instagram link in bio, there is the link to the Eventbrite link page. Said link a lot there to register that you're coming or not. Actually, you don't have to write if you're not coming. I think we'll understand that bit. 1 o'clock, Regent's Bar and Kitchen in Regent's Bar in London. Nearest tube station is Regent's Park. And you don't need to bring a dog. This is a very crucial thing that people keep asking. There will be dogs there, but if you don't have a dog, it doesn't matter. It's just basically an excuse to all hang out. We had a lovely time last time. And please keep writing in. hello@homosapienspodcast.com, at Homo Sapiens on Instagram. You've got to subscribe on the YouTube at Homo Sapiens Pod. What else is really fascinating that I'm going to say now? Oh, we're supporting Not a Phase with this season. So if you know anyone who wants gender-affirming underwear, or you are someone who wants some, write in and nominate them. And we are raising money to buy them gender-affirming underwear from Danny from Not a Phase's gender-affirming underwear company called Zoa. Which leaves me just to introduce my delightful co-host, Roxy Boudillon, who was here but a few weeks ago, editor of Diva magazine, has come back to join me today to talk about, well, we're going to get into all sorts, but we're going to talk about the fact that I Kissed a Boy, I Kissed a Girl, the BBC show, has not been renewed, which is, people are saying that's code for cancelled. We're going to get into the whole thing. Welcome, Roxy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me back. Always a delight to hang out with you on Homo Sapiens.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I loved our guest last time, so looking forward to more. Roxy, where do you live in the world?
I live in St Leonard's-on-Sea, or St Lesbian-on-Sea, as I've heard it described, which is just next door to Hastings, aka Gastings.
Yes. Now, funnily enough, I've only been to Gastings. I've not been to, and as soon as I went there, I was like, yeah, I went with some gays who loved it. And lots of listeners live there, actually. Shout out St Leonard's, shout out Gastings. Do you think we could tempt you along for the Homo Sapiens Dog Walk? That's why I said that.
Well, I don't have a dog, but I love a dog. And you just said that I didn't need a dog, so I'd love to be there. Me and all the other St Lesbians and Gastings lot, we can all come en masse.
Fabulous, thank you. We would greatly enjoy you coming. Last time, Dr. James Greenwood, one of your fellow co-hosts, came. Morgan Rees came along. Then we bumped into Siobhan McSweeney in the park.
Oh.
Who would have thought that? Do you know who that is?
I know the name.
No. Yeah. So so she hosts the Irish Traitors, but she's an actor.
I do know who that is now. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was funny. So who knows what stars we'll see on this one? She was in Derry Girls as well. How have you been since I saw you last?
Yeah, I've been good. I've been busy. I'm gearing up for my, I've got my book out, What a Girl Wants, and I've got the paperback coming out.
I saw that.
In just a matter of days. So doing all the stuff, preparing for that. Thank you for your whoops. Thank you for your congrats. And then Diva is a busy beast as always.
Well, I was interested to hear that you were saying that Diva, what would you call them, readership, are up in arms about this I Kissed a Boy, Kissed a Girl thing.
Yeah, they definitely are. It definitely feels like something that has got our community and our audience all riled up. And I think I really wanted to talk about it because working at Diva, obviously, like our bread and butter is queer on-screen representation and queer visibility generally. But in all the years I've worked there, there's actually very few TV shows that really kind of cut through and have that kind of mass appeal among the community. And I
Mm.
think that, I could name them on one hand, the ones that have had that in the last 10 years. It's
Really,
just
go on.
things. Yeah, okay, let's challenge me. Can I name them all on one
Well,
hand?
it's just good to know, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. So I would say the L Word for
Yeah,
sure. I would say Gentleman Jack. That was
yeah,
huge with Diva audience. I would say Orange is the New Black, if we're going like the
yeah.
last 10 years. And then I'd say I
Mm,
Kissed a Girl. And I think there's been
mm,
other shows that have struck a chord and have been gorgeous and have made different people feel seen. But in terms of the ones where I know as an editor that, okay, if we feature that, we know that we're going to make a lot of people
mm,
happy, sell a lot of copies of the magazine, get a lot of people talking. And I also know when I talk to readers about the kind of emotional impact that these different shows have on them, that there's
mm,
some that are just on that different level in terms of how much they resonate. And I Kissed a
mm.
Girl and I Kissed a Boy, they were on that level. So I've been there since I remember when they announced the show, and I remember the excitement because in Diva we did a partnership with the show, and we did their exclusive cast announcements, and we interviewed Danny, and we had Danny at our awards, and we really were
Amazing.
behind it. So I
Mm,
remember kind of the excitement and the feeling of like, oh, we've been gagging for this for so long. Finally, they're
mm,
going to give it to us. And then everyone loved the first series of I Kissed a Girl. And so now to see the cancellation of it ahead of its second and final series, and I suppose the fourth series of the franchise, it's just really interesting to see that journey. And also it feels
mm.
quite poignant because it feels like we went from a place of queer joy and hope and representation to a place of really sort of damping out one of the lights we've got, which is really sad.
It is really sad, isn't it? And it's we asked how many of you are feeling disappointed about it, and 81% of you said yes, disappointed. Um, and what do you think this is because of? What's causing it? Is this part of a bigger trend, or was it not rating? I don't know.
Okay, so what's really, really interesting is that until this point, the story that we have been told, because obviously we follow this stuff super closely at my work, the story we've
Mm,
been told is that the I Kissed a franchise was a great success. Like we were
mm-hmm,
told that in particular, I Kissed a Girl had been a real critical hit, like it had rave reviews in the press, in the
mm,
mainstream
mm,
press, as well as queer press. Like places like The Guardian, they called it, I think, like the sweetest and most touching reality TV in a long time. Like the
mm,
Times said it was a breath of fresh air. The Standard said it was refreshing, a refreshing spin on a typical straight reality TV. So it was having all this critical success. Then it also, as well as being causing excitement in the community, it it did really well ratings wise, is what we were being told. So it
mm.
actually was boosting the ratings above what it normally would be for that slot. And in particular, BBC was excited because it was bringing them a whole lot more under 35 audience, which they were trying to
Yeah.
get. So we were told it was doing really well, ratings wise, critically. Everyone seemed really
Mm.
excited. So I think that, that's interesting. It's an interesting moment to cancel it. And it's also interesting because I Kissed a Girl, there is one more series of it that's coming shortly, which is the final
Mhm.
series of the franchise, presumably, certainly in this format on BBC.
Mm.
And so it's also interesting that they're announcing it ahead of that. Like they're not even going to
Mm.
see how this plays out and how this does ratings wise and so on.
But then, so question: Is it that because there's a 12,000 people have signed a petition, haven't they, to try and get it brought back? And is it that they just haven't renewed it, which I know can be language, or have they actually said it isn't coming back? I couldn't quite work it out.
Okay, so they've said that it's not coming back. They've said that this
Right,
will be the fourth and final season of the franchise. And
I'm with
also,
you.
I'm glad you mentioned the petition, Chris, because that's super interesting. Last time
Mm.
I checked, which was like moments ago, it was up
Mm.
to kind of 14,000. So it's getting
Oh wow.
signatures all the time, which is cool. It's interesting, the petition, because it says, save our show, but it also says, hey, BBC, we would like to see transparency about how much of taxpayer money is actually
Mm,
going towards representing marginalized
yeah.
identities, including queer people, because we're
Mm.
taxpayers too, you know?
Well, and it's the public service broadcasting remit,
Yeah,
isn't it? That is to
exactly.
represent the full spectrum of people who live in this, well, not even people who live in this country, the full spectrum of people on Earth.
Mm,
And um, yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? Because to hear that it's doing really well ratings wise makes you wonder why they
mm,
would they would change it. And the fact that isn't lots of BBC shows going on YouTube and stuff as well, so
yeah,
it feels like it could have been part of a moment
yeah.
to do with kind of youth audiences that would be better. But do you think it was, do you think that I Kissed a Boy Girl is part, was it progress or was it part of a moment which is appearing to pass?
Mm. I think that it was really important in terms of that pop culture visibility. I think that it
Mm,
made so many people sort of feel seen and excited and cool and good and positive and valid in their
yeah.
identity, which is really powerful. I
Mm,
think that it feels to me a bit like for the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk in the particularly in the Sapphic community about the lesbian renaissance and about
hmm.
suddenly it felt like it was aspirational and cool, and there was this whole resurgence of attention on like lesbian chic and lesbian TV
Mm,
shows and lesbian pop music, and like a whole new wave of dyke nights popping up and the return of the dyke
mm,
march. Like it felt like we were living in a moment, and like sort of I could really feel it, like being
mm,
embedded in the community through work. I could really feel there was something really gay in the air, and people felt
mm,
really, really good about it. And I Kissed a Girl and I Kissed a Boy felt like part of that. But
mm,
now I think what we're seeing as the world becomes increasingly kind of, it feels politically hostile and it
yep.
feels more and more scary being queer. I think we're seeing we're seeing the backlash against that, or the dying down of that. But it's like you
Mm,
can cancel our shows, but you can't cancel our identities. So we
hmm.
might be a trend to the mainstream that they can pick up because we're a novelty value for a little bit to give them something new and sexy to talk about. But
Mm.
actually, queer people are still going to be here and always have been here, no matter if they determine if we're cool or not.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because um, I wrote a piece in Attitude about this, about this feeling of we allowed ourselves around 2015 to become fashionable, and
Mm,
actually maybe that was a mistake because
mm,
we're not a fashion movement. And I do, I hear you on the kind of, the queer female pop artists, and there definitely felt like there was a, a a moment happening around lesbian culture. But it's really interesting. You always feel like as soon as it pops through to pop culture, they smack it back down again,
yeah.
and it's like, no, 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 you are artists and singers and avant-garde people in inverted commas you can be as queer as you like, but I'm not having it in my day to day.
Mm,
Sometimes I get that sense. And I felt like what was really lovely about the I Kissed a Boy Girl show was like very much symbolized by Danny Minogue doing it. It felt like
yeah.
pop culture, not queer culture.
Yeah.
And what I was really struck by watching it was the um, the feeling of exploration, which is what queerness is.
Mm,
And I wondered if that's why maybe straight people related to it, because it is, it just, I don't know what I'm trying to say quite, but it really showed how universal love is.
yeah.
It's just no matter what no matter what you are, you still get that the feels are all the same. And I loved that. And I thought that's what was so special about it. And I think that straight people connected with that. And it's a shame to see that that won't get to live again.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're right. And I think as well, I read that I Kissed a Boy, for example, had a huge audience of women Like it wasn't just
Mm.
gay guys and queer guys watching it. It was also women who were enjoying it and relating to it. And there's something about, and I feel I start getting a bit self-conscious when I sort of intellectualize reality TV too much. But I
Mm.
think that it's so gorgeous when you see any kind of queer stories on screen if it's done well and with good intent. And I think
Mm.
that there's real power in having queer fictional characters on screen. But there's
Mm.
something about the fact that even though obviously it's all edited for maximum entertainment, and obviously they're in an artificial situation, these are essentially real queer people
Yeah.
being themselves or some version of themselves
Mm.
on our TV screens. And that is like the most relatable thing in the world because they're just being
Yeah.
human. And that is
Yeah.
so, so special. And I think that that's a big part of why it resonated with queer and straight audiences, because it was just super relatable. And I was rewatching I Kissed a Girl ahead of this, and it's
Mm.
just such a joyful, joyful show. But as well as like all the sort of juicy, scandalous, snogging each other drama, which is great fun. And obviously, like, you know, we can be messy bitches. We make great reality TV.
Amen, sister.
But some of my favorite moments, they actually weren't about that. They weren't about the romantic entanglements. They were when like the group were just kind of sitting around and talking and having these gorgeous conversations. And there was
So
Georgia, the
lovely.
footballer. Yeah,
Yeah.
so lovely. And Georgia, the footballer, she had this amazing conversation. She was like, "How do you guys feel about the word lesbian?" And then she was
Mm.
talking really honestly, saying like how for a long time it felt like lesbian was like, you know, the insult at school, and she felt deep
Yes.
shame about it. And then she got really kind of emotional and the group got really emotional. But then she was talking about like finding pride in her identity and like the reason why L is at the beginning of LGBT because of the role lesbians played in the AIDS and HIV crisis. And then
Yeah.
she sort of was talking about now she's like, she wishes she could go back and tell her younger self being a lesbian's fucking awesome. And that kind of conversation, to see that
Mm.
on like mainstream TV is huge. And not only is it gorgeous to see Georgia talking like that and the group talking about things like this or about bisexual biphobia or mask identity or whatever it is they're talking about, it's also
Mm.
like that then sparks a whole lot of real world conversations. And we could see it at
Mm.
Diva. We could see every time there was one of those conversations in the show, there would then be the huge conversation it would spark online where viewers felt like they could be empowered to talk about their own identity and their own experience. And that was so beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah. It's you know, we look to TV to see ourselves reflected back at us, don't we? We look to stories, but we
Mm,
put TV and I had never drawn the distinction until you just said it of, you know, you can have it in drama, but it's different seeing it in reality. And what I love about watching those conversations, I remember that exact conversation and how honest she was, is how recognizable it is.
yeah.
Like you've never met them, you don't know each other, but the way they talk to each other, the way they sit round. I remember like the way the I Kissed a Boy boys used to sit around. I was like, oh God, it's not, you know, that's just how I sit with my gay mates. Like it's just different. It's
Mm,
something about it. And there's a unity in the air that is
yeah.
so magic to see and affirming, I suppose is the best word for it.
Definitely. And that's the other
Mm.
thing that I think is so beautiful about these shows. If you're a person, if you're a queer person, or maybe just any person who feels a bit isolated or lonely for whatever
Yes.
reason, perhaps because of your identity, perhaps because of other reasons, like it's
Mm.
almost like you can have a sort of pseudo fantasy, gorgeous, diverse queer friendship group. And you feel like
Yeah.
you're part of the gang and you get to experience a taste of that community and fellowship and silliness and like shared
Mm.
references. And I think that that's something that like as queer people particularly like we often crave if we don't have it. And I often speak to readers who are like, how can I make more queer friends? Like I want that chosen family vibe of people who get it.
Yes.
And like if you
Mm.
don't have it in real life, I kissed a boy, I kissed a girl, you could kind of feel like you were part of that friendship group, which
Oh,
is so
yeah.
beautiful.
Well, I, you know, I Kissed a Boy season one, I'm talking about here, like I followed them all on Instagram. They all
Yeah.
became my little parasocial friends.
Yeah.
And, like I'm friends with Dan Harry now, who was in season 1, if you remember. And
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's really, it's bringing a smile to my face. It's like, and then, so one thing I wanted to talk about together is, because we asked you listeners, are queer dating shows judged more harshly? 98% of you said yes, listeners. So there we go. Reactions there from you, Roxy. Do you agree?
Well, I don't want to disagree with 98% of the listeners.
Well, come on, yeah.
I do agree. I do think we're judged more harshly, because what we were saying about, like, well, these shows were a ratings hit, they were a critical hit, they were so, so successful, and yet still they get cancelled. And I think that there's also something on when it's kind of a queer show, and when there's a feeling that it's like, oh, well, you're the only one, there's almost a heightened pressure on that as well. And I think sometimes the queer community can be guilty of putting more pressure on them, but also to mainstream people as well. It's also like, oh, well, if this doesn't work, then that's because all queer shows are rubbish. There's that kind of assumption, which is nonsense.
Yeah, and also, like, you were making me think of earlier when you were talking about how many women loved I Kissed a Boy, like how many women, I've got my straight friends in my WhatsApps being like, I'm obsessed with Heated Rivalry. Like they're not, it's I think Heated Rivalry and I Kissed a Boy both appealed to women and straight women, because it showed boys showing tenderness that a lot of straight men are showing tenderness that a lot of straight men are afraid to show. In some ways, they're being judged for being for queer people, but they're not just for that. They're actually, the breadth is much bigger, and so it's even more frustrating when you see them kind of being challenged. And I do think that you're absolutely right. I've heard Russell T Davies speak about this a bit, of like, writing queer shows and everybody gets has expectations of the kind of queer people who are in those shows. That's not me, and apparently that's what we, the queer community, do. I mean, I know that I really connected with Looking, because I was roughly their age when it came out, and but I didn't connect with other queer shows, can't think of any, but so I've been guilty of that as well, I suppose.
And I think it just speaks to that there's still such a scarcity. So it puts too much pressure on the ones there are. So what we need is just more of this stuff. And you're right, it's a myth that it only appeals to queer people. That's not true. Straight people can relate to this as well. I think you're really right. And I think well, oh, go on. Sorry, Chris.
Sorry, no, just, and also they have happy endings. They're full of drama, but they are happy endings. They're not like It's a Sin, where there's a catastrophic ending, and so many queer stories have been along those lines. So it is so good to have some joyful things when we need it most. And I think as well, like, so this point of, are queer shows and queer dating shows judged more harshly? So there have been other queer dating shows. I Kissed a Boy and I Kissed a Girl were hailed as the UK's first gay dating show. But before that, we did have The Bi Life in, I think, 2019, around then. I remember, gosh,
Yeah, which was like a bisexual dating show. It was either 2018 or 2019. And it was hosted by Courtney Act, the drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race, who's amazing. And it was lots of bisexual people on a glamorous holiday, as they always are on these shows, sort of getting off with each other in the sunshine. And it was lovely. It was really great. I really, really enjoyed it. But that was only lasted for, I think, 1 season. So that was The Bi Life. And then there was Queer Love Ultimatum, which was a Netflix show. And this was another one that Diva Readers got very excited about. And I'll be honest, I got very excited about too. There's a straight show, or a show with heterosexual couples on, called The Ultimatum, which is what this was a spin-off of. And the idea on Queer Love Ultimatum was, you get 2 women in a couple. One of them wants to get married. One of them doesn't want to get married. So obviously the natural way to solve this relationship dilemma is to go on a reality TV show and then take it in turns to partner swap and go off with someone else you fancy, live with them for 3 weeks and see if you get it together. And if not, maybe marry the
What?
first one. So that's the premise of Queer Love Ultimatum. And it was
Okay,
messy.
I'm in.
Yeah, no, it's
I
really
bet.
entertaining television. It's really sort of scandalous television. But that was the entertaining premise of Queer Love Ultimatum. I mean, jeepers, yeah. I
God.
just, I do puzzle at how that's the best thing for your relationship.
Yeah. Also, like, you know, sometimes I like it when those shows sort of they come up with something that is like, it's bold, but it would work. That's just like, let's just fuck them. Let's just fuck with them.
Yeah.
Let's really mess with their heads for 3 weeks, film it, and then, wow, they must have had some duty of care conversations around that.
Well, indeed, yes. I think the duty of care thing was a whole other thing. I think it was, yeah, it was kind of a big hit with Diva readers, but yeah, it was pretty messy. And yeah, the duty of care thing's a real thing.
Some listener comments in response to our why are queer shows dated? Why are queer dating shows judged more harshly? Why don't I just read it off the screen? Tim says, when there are so few queer shows, one cancellation can wipe out a whole genre. This is it.
Tim, you're so wise. That is so true and sad.
Sensei, Tim. Hayden says straight people are fine with it until we rub it in their faces. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I sort of alluded to that a little bit about we get batted back down as soon as we move into mainstream culture. But I also sort of have to check myself on that a bit because we were just talking at length about how straight women loved it, you know?
True.
So it's complex. I do believe that's the correct saying. Roxy, let's talk about Love Island. Do we feel that part of the issue is that we are shoehorning queer love into straight culture formats? You were just talking about that with Queer Love, the Ultimatum. Or is that actually a universal truth and therefore great?
Gosh, what do I think? I don't know. To me, I Kissed a Girl and I Kissed a Boy didn't feel like we were trying to ape a straight format. They felt like a celebration of queer community and identity. And they did feel like they mirrored things like Love Island, but they had a different vibe. Like the things like the conversations, like the powerful conversations. Also, like there was sort of a little bit of an educational element in the sense of like when they talk about their identities or what different terminology means or how they felt about their gender or their sexuality or what it's like to be bisexual or queer history or pride or, you know. So it felt to me in a really actually lovely and accessible and sweet way, like these shows, was sort of a little bit of a beginner's guide to being queer as well in a really sweet way. Or like a guide to make straight people to maybe answer some of their unanswered questions in a non-threatening way that was also interesting for queer audiences to watch as well. So to me, it didn't feel like it was aping a straight format. But then I have, for a long time, been like a big sort of advocate for us having more trashy gay TV. Like I never thought there was enough. I always thought we deserved a bit of trash too.
Can we talk a bit about casting? Because we're talking about trying to be all things to all people. And actually, the trans man in I Kissed a Boy was fabulous, I think. And more, give me more. You know, I love all of that. And I think he got a really warm reaction as well, which was fantastic. What was the discussion around who was in I Kissed a Girl? Was there enough representation of the right different the full spectrum of the lesbian community?
Okay, so I think that I think that there's always room for improvement, but actually, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of a lot of certainly diva readers and people in that world, they did pretty well for diversity. Like they had a real mix of different races. They had a mix of sort of more masc presenting people, more femme presenting people, androgynous people, like all sorts of different vibes in that way. There perhaps could have been a bit more inclusion in terms of like different body sizes, but there was a little bit of that, which was lovely to see. And I think that particularly for this kind of show, I was actually really pleasantly surprised by the diversity in it. I think there is always room for more, and I'm really interested to see when they do the cast announcement for the final season of I Kissed a Girl, what the cast is going to look like this year. I think it was fabulous that in I Kissed a Boy they had a trans guy. I think it'd be great to have some trans representation, some non-binary representation, and just to make it like, yeah, as inclusive and diverse as possible. It was also great in I Kissed a Girl that they had bisexual girls, and they would specifically talk about what that's like for them, as well as like ones who are like, no, I'm lesbian for days, lesbian for life.
I'm a lifer. And yeah, very, very much same I Kissed a Boy. You know, I think bodies were not that diverse, body shapes. But you know, streets ahead of Love Island.
Yeah.
I don't get why Love Island gets such a free pass. Why does it get such a free pass for so many toxic things?
I suppose it's got such a huge audience and it makes so much money for the people it makes money for. And I think that, yeah, it's just kind of that mass appeal that people seem to be happy to overlook all sorts of quite troubling things on it, or things that are disappointing.
Because it is, you know, it's really interesting that I think one of the things we've been talking about is, maybe this is our queerness, but we really connected with the vulnerability in these dating shows.
Yeah.
And actually, you do see some vulnerability in Love Island. I can't really say I've watched tons of it, so maybe I'm a little bit sticking my neck out here. But what I do see is really toxic behavior.
Yeah.
And people do go out and repeat that, you know? And I do think it speaks to, I don't know, I just remember guys behaving like that when I was 12, like, you know, older guys. And then I felt like it went away, and now I feel like it's back with this sort of manosphere-y behavior. And I don't know why it doesn't get called out for it more. It's odd. And I think also, like, in terms of dating shows, and there is an aspirational element, in inverted commas, which is like all these gorgeous people getting together and being gorgeous together. And that is fun to watch because they're all sexy and hot, you know? But I still think I Kissed a Boy and Girl they were all sexy and hot. But it was sort of, you know, it doesn't have to be, you don't need that toxic element.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, diverse people are hot. And also, it's hot to have a big mix of people. Like, I think that's sexy.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how you know, this isn't really that related, but I'm off. How everybody's doing, you know, more and more people are just routinely having high street bits and bobs done surgery wise.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to look like this one invented person who is not real, you know? Like, everyone's just ending up looking like this if it's women, it's like this slightly, this blonde woman. There's sort of this magical blonde woman who, I don't know who she is, but everyone's trying to look like her, you know? And with men, it's like this sort of Lantern George magical, I don't know, it's really, I was reading all these articles about looks maxing.
Oh, looks maxing. Yes, I've been reading about this.
Go on. So just tell everyone what it is, because I'll get it wrong.
Oh gosh, I mean, I may well get it wrong as well, because I'm not part of the looks maxing community. But
me neither.
From my limited understanding,
he says, looking at an Easter egg.
From my limited understanding, looks maxing. So it's this part of the manosphere where they're all about maximizing this specific kind of look that they want, but it gets quite dark because it goes from, you know, diets and exercise regimes and haircuts or whatever, but then it goes to things I've heard about that really were fucking alarming, were that they were sort of doing brutal bashing of the face to get themselves specific jaws, you know, like to get a new jawline. And I don't know if this is something that people are actually doing in real life, or if this is something that some influencers are doing or saying they're doing, but like sort of that kind of barbaric self stuff, but not even kind of going to a surgeon and saying, no, I'd like a more defined jawline, which is a different thing. Like they were doing it DIY. Alarming.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that bit. Yeah. But it's everyone's trying to get closer and closer to very singular ideals. And what I loved about I Kissed a Boy and a Girl was like they were just loads of people who felt sexy being sexy, and that is hot. That's hotness, people.
I think
It's no,
so too.
it's so boring people being anxious. You know, like anxiety is so not hot, and I think this kind of trying to be perfect is deeply anxious. And actually, don't you think the most attractive people in the world are people who are like, this is me, baby, come get it? I love that people. I love people like that.
100%.
I speak as someone who's deeply anxious and never have been like that. But, you know, that's probably why I find it so attractive.
It is so attractive, though. And also this looks maxing stuff. And the thing you're talking about this elusive blonde woman everyone's trying to look like. If you think about those two ideas of beauty and those beauty standards, they're like extremely gendered. Like they're extremely rooted in gender stereotypes of being the ultimate, in inverted commas, hyper masculine, Johnny Bravo with the big square jaw and whatever else they want, or this like super sort of, in inverted commas, aspirational ultimate woman look. And actually, I find that there's so much beauty, you know, that doesn't conform to that. Of course there is. We know that as queer people. But like you're saying, actual sexiness, if you're actually in the world interacting with people, sexiness is the energy, the confidence, the spark, the personality. That is actually so much more sexy, the charisma, and that what they exude is actually what sex appeal is. It's not how someone looks. And if you're with someone, they might look like whatever the idea of the ideal is, but if they've got no personality, I'm turned off. I'm not, you know, sorry, love, not interested.
Yeah, and connection, you know, like, and I think that's what I find interesting about I Kissed a Boy and Girl was like you would feel connection crackle between them, between people, and I know everyone was running around with loads of other people, you know, there was drama as well, but then when I watched Love Island, you know, there's this thing, I can't put my finger on it except to describe it like this. When they're talking to each other or getting together, even two people who are getting together, I feel like they're doing it. I feel like they're acting in themselves. You know, like it's and I actually find it with people in the street. This just makes it sound like an old man, but I'm saying it. Like when there's a lot of a younger generation of the Love Island generation who always move and look at you as if there's a camera on them. Do you know what I mean by that?
Right,
do you relate to that, or am I being paranoid and insane?
I don't think you're paranoid and insane, so don't worry. So be calm, love.
You're
You're not
different things to my therapist.
I don't think you're paranoid and insane. I think it's really interesting. I think that on things like Love Island, because they're there, maybe some of them to find love, probably more of them to find Instagram followers and, you know, advertising deals. Yeah, indeed. And then I wonder about what you were saying, that you've noticed people sort of just in the street who seem like they're sort of constantly performing for some camera. Is that because it's a generation that's grown up with social media and that sort of their whole lives have been in a way, you know, viewed in this through a lens in a way that maybe when we were growing up, it wasn't the same?
Well, people, you need to write in hello@homosapienspodcast.com because, you know, I also hear people around that age just being like, we're not that interested in socials, you know, and it's like people think we are and we're not. So but there is some kind of performative element of engaging 24/7, which I think is about life maxing. I think people think that they are like it's the opposite of confidence and connection. It's like
Mm,
constantly thinking that they need to be a certain kind of ideal in order to
okay.
actually get involved in life or be, and it's like, no, 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 you're enough,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think, yeah,
I don't know.
you're onto something there. Is it also some? I'm trying to think back to, my long forgotten youth. I was more self-conscious, yeah. And so I wonder if there's something when you are younger and you're figuring yourself out more, maybe for some people, that you maybe are less at ease in yourself, and maybe that's part of it.
Mm,
Possibly, maybe, not sure.
maybe they're just young, Chris. What a horrible man I am. Um, maybe they're just nervous. Did these shows change attitudes, Roxy, would you say? Did they
I
actually change anything at all?
Okay, so I think I'm interested to hear what the Homo sapiens listeners think. I I
Well, I'll give you
think
a stat first.
yeah,
Sorry,
give the step first.
sorry, I forgot that bit. 71% of you said yes,
Okay,
so big
okay,
majority.
okay, cool. I think they do. I think they change attitudes in a couple of different ways. I think that there is something about being on big TV shows, on mainstream
Mm,
channels, which has a kind of normalization effect. And it's the same thing like if you get a queer couple in Corrie or whatever, if you get them in a soap opera, it's that thing of people seeing queer people um, in their everyday lives, in their living rooms. And I think that
mm,
is really powerful. And it's also sort of that thing of showing them, actually, we're just like you. We're
yeah,
just, there's nothing to be scared of us for. Like, here we are, we're perfectly normal and lovely and silly. But then I also think it changes attitudes among queer people, because I think that when we see ourselves on screen, I think that shifts something that's almost like, it's quite mercurial, but something inside us. Like, I think that it's so powerful. Like, in my book, What a Girl Wants, I've got a whole chapter on, like, it's called Talking, Laughing, Loving, Breathing, Fighting, Fucking, which for any of the
mm,
listeners who know the L Word theme tune will understand the reference. But it's talking
mm,
about every time we see ourselves on screen, it moves the dial. For me, it wasn't like
yeah,
one moment like, oh, I watched the L Word and now I'm great with being gay. Hey, world. But it's like every
mm,
time it like moves your dial a little bit more, heals something, gives you a bit of confidence, gives you a bit of reassurance. And that all adds up to be a glorious cumulative effect that can then
yeah,
make you feel able and empowered to stand in yourself and be yourself and express yourself. And I think that I Kissed a Girl and I Kissed a Boy did that for people. And I know they did, because I heard from people it had had that effect on them.
mm,
So I think it changes attitudes. I think it makes a lot of us feel better about being queer, because it's
yeah.
aspirational, it's cool, it's friendly, it's non-threatening, it's interesting, and there's some lovely people on there having a lovely time. And I think that that's something we don't see enough. So I think it does change attitudes.
Well, what a beautiful way to put it, Roxy. Um, Gary said, in a slightly different way, where he said, it shows that we're such sluts.
That too, that too. And
I'm down for
amen.
that.
Me
Yeah.
too. Like, we want to see some lovely slutty behavior. Come on.
Well, queer love is different, and and to show it and to see it is lovely. So here's to the sluts.
Oh,
Um,
let's hear it for the sluts.
let's hear it
Absolutely.
for the sluts.
Yeah.
So Roxy, we have to finish, but I just want to sort of tip it off, finish it off with, what do we think is next then? What's, if we don't have this anymore, is it the beginning of a period without this stuff, or do you think other things will come back? What are we losing if we lose these shows?
Okay, so I think it's really interesting to see what happens with this particular I Kissed a Girl, I Kissed a Boy franchise, because there's the petition that we spoke about, trying to get it
Yes.
back. There's also people like Amy Spalding, who was one of the stars, one of the breakout stars on I Kissed a Girl, and she's also our
Mm.
latest diva cover star on the cover of the Dyke
Oh,
issue,
cool.
being very
Cool.
dykey and very cool. Amy Spalding was calling for, appealing to other networks and other people in power to, let's get this show somewhere else then if BBC Three don't want it. And there's also talks of, I think there were talks of Tinder. I read reports that Tinder were thinking of doing some kind of spin-off version of it. It started with a kiss. That's been reported in various places. So there's hope. There's hope.
Great.
And if you look at the power of fandom, particularly with queer shows, there have been queer campaigns to save shows that have been successful. There was a show called Winona Earp, which I don't know if you saw it. It's like a supernatural show, imagining the famous gunslinger Wyatt Earp's great-great-granddaughter, and she's doing supernatural stuff, and she's being great. And it's got a lesbian love story at the center of it, which is a really beautiful, beautiful story. And when that show got cancelled, its fans were so devastated that they clubbed together. They created a whole campaign. They bought space on a billboard in Times Square, Save Winona Earp. They did like all these kind of stunts to bring attention to their campaign, as well as the petition. Yes. The power of queer fandom is incredible. And they had, the billboard in Times Square, all their stunts, they got the stars on board, then they brought it back. They got it back. They got a 90-minute special off the back of all that work and the amazing people from the show. So I think, don't underestimate the power of, really committed queers who want something back.
Well, committed queers listening here, we're going to put the petition in the show notes. Let's see what we can do, and let's have an update next time you and I speak, Roxy. I just want to say that a few things to end on. Hello at homosapienspodcast.com. Write in, tell us your thoughts on this and anything else at Homo Sapiens on Instagram. Follow us at Homo Sapiens Pod on YouTube, where you can see my dull background, Roxy's glorious pink emporium, and get Roxy's book when it comes out in paperback, What a Girl Wants. That's available probably from the time that we're talking. And Roxy, you are a powerhouse of a mind. Thank you. That was such a great chat, and I hope you'll be coming back very soon.
I hope so too. What a gorgeous chat. Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Oh, well done. All right, listeners, lots of love. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye-bye.